Hey there. So today, before beginning, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to really think about this before answering. I want to know whether or not you consider comedy sacrosanct, meaning can someone take the stage, whether that's an actual stage, an E-stage, and on, and say whatever they want to throw out there, or are there certain lines within the sand? I mean, when you get down to it, I remember this discussion coming up all throughout my life. I really remember that subject coming up around 9/11, for example, when people just weeks after the fact were making jokes about planes crashing into towers and people saying, man, that is tactless. Basically you need to at least wait a little while before. Now, people would answer that saying, hey, I can talk about whatever I want. And also, when we talk about these subjects, sometimes the darkest subjects are the material we need to make light of. If we don't say something like that, we basically hold it in, and everyone not being able to laugh at it, well, we can't move past it. Societally, we have to have that bridge within the conversation. There's also this idea of observation. When you go out and you look at something, most people, when your day-to-day reality, you go out and you mind those proverbial P's and Q's. You make sure that you don't offend. But comedy, well, it's not there to babysit. People, they sometimes pay for observation, and they sometimes pay for people to go out and to basically be offensive. I mean, you think about some of the things that, say, a George Carlin threw out there, or say an Andrew Dice Clay in the past. The way that they carried or comported themselves, the things that they would say, especially set against the backdrop of society. It was basically a pushback to anything that you would see. You see that later on, too. Look at the Dave Chappelle's, for example. One of the last things that I watched with him, a Netflix show, it basically brought up the idea of transgenderism with regard to a certain gender. Now, when that person was brought up, of course, Chappelle, he made a lot of apologies, saying this is more about me than them, but he proceeded to basically say that it's a first world white person issue, to boil down his jokes. And he made a lot of jokes about that. People, of course, got offended about it, but still, you're talking about something that you're going to get a reaction from, and it's also an observation from the person. Now, I mean, you also see, of course, people offend just to offend. You see edgelord humor all the time. Basically, the internet is choked full of it. And I really wonder, is there a line? Are the people out there that get offended, are they right? Or do you have the people like Seinfeld that have talked about going to colleges and saying even the most milquetoast ideas will offend? I mean, is he right there? Should we basically get past that? Should we be able to laugh at anything or to walk away from comedy? Or, again, should we basically be policing people? Now, Louis C.K., he is the newest person to come under attack after saying some stuff about identity and also about Parkland victims. Now, there's a clip in this. I'm going to encourage you to go listen to it for yourself. The reason I'm not going to play it in this is because YouTube has essentially taken down a couple of videos that had this house within it. However, I'm going to read you a portion of one of the jokes. And, of course, when you're looking at this article from TMZ, which it does have that embedded here, he talks about he says the kids who survived, talking about Parkland, are not interested just because they went to high school where people were shot, and that he shouldn't have to listen to them just because they, quote, pushed some fat kid in the way, unquote. Also, when you go out, here's another portion of that. He said, I was kind of excited to be in my 50s and see people in their 20s and be like, you're crazy. These kids are nuts. But they're not. They're effing, they're just boring. Effing telling. You shouldn't say that. What are you? An old lady? What the F are you doing? Yeah, that's not appropriate. F you. You're a child. Why aren't you finger effing each other and doing jello shots? Like, why aren't you? You should address me. They're like royalty. They tell you what to call them. You should address them as they, them, because I identify as gender neutral. Oh, okay. You should address me as there because I identify as a location, and that location is your mother. dangerous. Well, you can see that there. It's interesting, too, because within this, people are pointing out what Louis C.K. has said in the past versus, well, what Louis C.K. is throwing out here now. And the internet, of course, is up in arms about it. You see all of the Twitter sphere basically aflame because, oh my God, he had the audacity to say these terrible things. Louis C.K., 2017. I've spent my long and lucky career talking and saying anything I want. I will now step back and take a long time to listen. So he responded to that, saying that he was going to actually let other people language police him, and to basically draw that line in the sand. He was going to listen, and yet, well, he didn't. Now, you see, like I say, there are plenty of people that have brought this stuff up, that were offended by it and on. This is just one reaction, well, to quite a few articles out there. If you go and you look this up, of course, you're going to get the sensitive material portion. You can see people that are really angry about it. He thinks it's wrong to use they as a singular pronoun. I, on the other hand, think it's wrong to sexually assault people. Oh, man. Of course, he's going to get that one there. You can see the line in the sand being drawn with things like this. Louis C.K. stepping back to take a long time and listen, going after non-binary people and survivor of school shootings. You can see the other stuff. It wasn't even edgy. It's an old conservative ranting about how in his day no one was woke and things were great. My God, people actually utilizing the word woke. You can see the old man, talking about him, just an old dude in his 50s ranting about this or that. So you see, all of this reaction. And of course, you're going to get that. And not only that, you're going to get it spotlighted because, hey, this is the reaction that you see to this kind of stuff. And I'm wondering, when you look at it, what exactly do you think about that? Me, I cannot imagine a stage where you go in and you effectively shut down comedy. Does that mean you have to like this specific type of comedy? Hell to the no. You can like whatever you want to like. You can pay for whatever you want to pay for, or the opposite. You cannot enjoy it. But, these days, the way conversations like this go, I think they're dangerous because someone out there is deciding where that line in the sand is. And here, you're not just talking about the Parkland school shootings. You're talking about the reaction. If you see that, people are not reacting to that. They're reacting to the idea that someone is talking about identity. Of all things, they're not talking about the Parkland portion. They're talking, of course, these days about gender pronouns, because gender pronouns, that's the thing that people should be upset by. It surprised me, but didn't. I would think that, if you're going to talk about one thing that was offensive trumping the other, I would think, pushing down the fat kid to get out of a school shooting might actually be more offensive. But no, then I thought about the platform. And again, when I think about that platform and shutting down people, well, they're shutting down people by the droves anyhow. So, of course, this is going to be a reflection of that type of thinking. And I'm wondering, again, where do you fall on this? Exactly what do you think about it? If you like this kind of content too, please consider supporting the channel. Like, sub. There's always new content daily. Coverage is whatever. I find this stuff to be fascinating on a cultural stage. We see things changing in specific ways. Some of them are absurd. Some of them bring up interesting questions. And I like to see exactly where people fall on it. I talk about hobbies. I talk about cultural. All of it comes together in this one stew. That pretty much it explains everything when you look at it. When you look at it just as an observer and think about what is going on, well, you kind of get a picture, and some of it is quite insane. Some of it is interesting, but again, some of it is quite insane. But anyhow, you tell me what you think about something like this. I do read answers there. I like to see what people think about it because I like to see exactly where everyone is coming from. Also, if you want to go further with supporting the channel, there are links within the description. I appreciate that as well, but I appreciate you showing up. So thank you. I appreciate it. I hope that you're having a great holiday season, and I hope this new year, I hope it treats you fabulously. Thanks.